Coming up, the Red Sox sweep the Yankees in New York. This is Locked On Game to Game, MLB.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game. MLB local experts join us, and then we recap all of the action for you from yesterday across Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. A Justin Turner RBI in the ninth broke the hearts of Yankee Stadium on Sunday. They finished off a Red Sox sweep of the Yankees for the weekend. After 3 straight wins, our Locked On hosts with both teams have more about the matchup.
Hey y'all, it's Gabby from Locked On Red Sox, and I don't really know where to begin with today's Red Sox-Yankees game. Very emotional roller coaster that took place at Yankee Stadium today. The Red Sox did pull out a 6-5 win. Justin Turner continues to be the guy in the clutch. That massive 3-run home run and that huge double that he hit in the 9th inning for the go-ahead run. I mean, talk about a dramatic game. That big play in the bottom of the 8th inning where Connor Falefa was ultimately ruled out, but initially was safe and they challenged it. To me, I thought they wouldn't overturn the call. I thought they would end up remaining with him being safe, but it was a huge call. Ultimately helped the Red Sox win the game, and Jansen had a little bump in the road in the 9th inning, but ultimately closed it out. Just an up and down game all over the place, but glad the Red Sox completed the sweep.
This is Stacey Gotsulias of Locked On Yankees, and the Yankees did something they haven't done since 1995, and that is lose 8 games in a row. At least that losing streak was on the road during a 13-game road trip that started in Boston and ended in Seattle. That streak ended in Seattle. This streak began in Miami, continued through Atlanta, and now has made it home to Yankee Stadium, where the Yankees lost 3 in a row to the Red Sox to get swept, and now they've lost 8 of 9 to the Red Sox. The disaster of a season continues for the New York Yankees. What isn't a disaster? The minors, and we talk about it because it's Minors Monday. Somerset had a good week. Hudson Valley had a good week. Scranton had a good week. Tampa had a good week, and we couldn't even get to them because there was too much to talk about with Somerset, Scranton, and Hudson Valley. So there are some positives when it comes to the Yankees. Unfortunately, it's not in the Bronx. What are you going to do? It's just that kind of a year.
The Blue Jays smashed 5 home runs on their way to beating the Reds yesterday. Locked On Blue Jays has the recap after the slugfest.
Hello, friends. Craig Ballard, Locked On Blue Jays. Toronto Blue Jays win on Sunday afternoon 10-3 to take the series in Cincinnati 2-1. First time since 2011 that the Blue Jays have won a series in Cincy. Now, this is the 9th time this season that the Blue Jays scored double-digit runs. 6th time of those 9 that it's happened on a Sunday, including the last 3 Sundays in a row. Wow. 5 home runs for the Blue Jays today, my goodness, including Bo Bichette, and how wonderful it is to see him back from injury and picking up right where he left off with this career season that he's having. And Hyunjin Ryu keeps getting sharper and sharper. He is now at no earned runs over his last 17 1/3 innings pitched. Want to shout out Bowden Francis as well. He pitched the final 3 innings of this game, earning his first career big league save.
The Cincinnati Reds call up top prospect Noelvi Marte over the weekend and proceed to lose a series to the Toronto Blue Jays. What's up? This is Jeff Carr from the Locked On Reds podcast, and the Reds caught up yet another phenom. Noelvi Marte announced himself by stealing third in the 9th inning of the game on Saturday, which the Reds lost, and then he hit a double for his first career hit on Sunday in a game which the Reds lost by a touchdown. Overall, not a great series. Didn't love to see the fact that the Reds just kind of went to sleep on this one. Hunter Green returned on Sunday and got destroyed, allowing 5 home runs in 3 innings pitched, something he's going to have to not do again, really, this year. Not the 5 home run part, but really clunkers of a start. He's got to be on his game if the Reds are going to come back. Make sure you check us out on the next Locked On Reds podcast as we talk about the Reds' optimal lineup with Marte in tow. And are we worried about the Reds missing the playoffs?
The Tigers beat the Guardians on Sunday, giving Detroit the season series against the Guardians for the first time in 8 seasons. After a small win and otherwise disappointing season, Locked On Guardians goes over the loss for Cleveland.
Guardians honored a pair of legends over the weekend in their series with the Detroit Tigers. Unfortunately, it was the Detroit Tigers taking home 3 wins in 4 games as their outgoing legend got a nice going away present from the Guardians and 3 wins and a guitar. I'm Justin Laticos, Locked On Guardians. On Sunday, Miguel Cabrera played his last game in Cleveland against the Guardians, and they gave him a guitar as a going away present, as it's always a guitar. Logan Allen threw 47 pitches in the first 2 innings, rebounded very nicely to go 6 innings. Guardians offense couldn't repay the favor of him settling down. Guardians of the weekend also inducted Manny Ramirez into the Hall of Fame. That was a fun ceremony. Honored him with a loss again on Saturday. The bullpen was not good most of the weekend. The offense wasn't good. The Guardians ran out some very lackluster lineups with their injuries and lack of depth this season. Disappointing weekend overall as the Guardians continue to fall back in the AL Central race. We're going to break down how the Guardians lineup got here to this point, some memories of Manny and Miggy, and some other fun stuff on Locked On Guardians this week.
Coming up, the Cubs and Orioles help their playoff hopes. This is Locked On Game to Game MLB. Today's edition of Locked On Game to Game is brought to you by Game Time. If you're like me, I always decide really last minute that I want to go to a concert, and then it's really hard to find tickets, but it shouldn't be. That's where the Game Time guarantee comes in. They will always get you the best price. If you find the tickets in the same section and the same row for less somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So download the Game Time app today, create an account, and you can use our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. The Orioles had it easy for most of the day on Sunday. They jumped out to an early lead and crushed the Athletics in the process. Locked On Orioles takes us through a stuffed stat sheet for Baltimore.
When you're in first place and you're playing a team with the worst record in baseball, you got to handle your business. And that is exactly what the Orioles did this weekend, sweeping the Oakland A's, finishing things off with a monstrous 12-1 win on Sunday. Connor Newcomb here, host of Locked On Orioles. That was a fun series for the O's. 28 runs on 40 hits in 3 games. They just crush an Oakland team that it makes me sad to watch them play. I feel bad for all the A's fans out there, but it's a good performance by the Orioles, especially on Sunday. Kyle Bradish, 6 strong innings. Gunnar Henderson had the cycle, and then he said, I can go to second and get a double when he only needed a single. The Orioles dugout was not happy with him, but it was all in good fun. That was a fun moment. These guys are playing loose. Gunnar Henderson's legit. Ryan Mountcastle's crushing the ball. They're hitting on all the cylinders. They sweep the series, and I'll recap the weekend coming up on Monday's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
Despite a late rally, the Cubs managed to hold off the Royals, and they took 2 out of 3 from Kansas City this weekend. Locked On Cubs gives us the takes from the win.
All right, Cubs win this game 4-3 against Kansas City. Got a little dicey late, but they held on. Overall, they took care of business after Friday's rough loss, unfortunately, because the Brewers are going to sweep in Texas, which is just absolutely ridiculous. They didn't really gain. They actually lost the game ground this weekend, but Cincinnati got beat, lost 2 out of 3, and like I tweeted out yesterday, that's actually really important because, you know, the Marlins and Brewers have a lot of games left that the Cubs can just steer clear up. Here we go. Steer clear of Cincinnati. They'll be in good shape, but we'll talk all about this on Monday's show. It was a good game. Hot game. Very hot, but a good game.
Both the Mets and the Cardinals are playing for consolation prizes at this point in the season, and it was St. Louis who came out on top and avoided the sweep against New York. The Locked On Local experts with these teams tell us all about it.
The New York Mets waited till they were completely out of the race to start winning series against bad teams. This is Ryan Finkelstein, the host of Locked On Mets, and over the weekend, we saw the Mets take the first 3 games of their 4-game set against the Cardinals on Sunday. They did lose. They dropped by a score of 7-3. Offense couldn't get it going quite enough, and Paul Goldschmidt just killed the Mets in this one with 3 hits, a home run, 3 runs driven in, great defense in the field. It just felt like one of those games where the superstars on the other side won you one, and that's what happened for the Cardinals with Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. But the Mets were great throughout the series. It's just frustrating because if they would have beaten these bad teams earlier in the year, they'd still be in the playoff race, and that's what we'll be talking about in tomorrow's episode of Locked On Mets, how the Mets wasted some opportunities earlier in the year, and now when they should be in some respects trying to lose games to play for an MLB lottery, here they go on and they win 2 consecutive series against teams they're vying for lottery balls with in the Pirates and the Cardinals.
Coming up, the Mariners are on the Astros' heels in the American League standings. This is Locked On Game to Game MLB. Welcome back. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game MLB. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. A surging Seattle team is on the heels of the Houston Astros in the AL playoff race, as the Mariners' sweep of the Astros over the weekend has them just a game back in the AL West and wildcard standings. Locked On Astros lets us know if there's a problem in Houston.
Hey there, it's House here with Locked On Astros, getting ready for the show tonight. The Astros unfortunately fall to the Seattle Mariners 7-6. It just was not a good series. They got swept. After the game, they had a closed-door team meeting. Martin Maldonado said it was like a slap in the face. Alex Bregman did say that he knows that they can play better, and everybody in that clubhouse knows what they need to do going forward. I guess the only silver lining is the Rangers on the other side of things did get swept as well. They were at home as well. So the Mariners inch closer to a wild card spot, and they inch closer to trying to make this division race a 3-horse race instead of a 2-horse race. Stay tuned in to Locked On Astros. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Help us get to 9,000 subscribers. Heck, help us get to 10,000 subscribers. Share our show with at least 3 people this week. Become an everydayer and make sure that you make us your team every single day. Thank you all for tuning in. Go Stros.
The Brewers swept the Rangers to hold on to their lead in the only NL division still kind of up for grabs. Locked On Rangers tells us what went wrong over the weekend for Texas.
Never would I have guessed that the Brewers, after playing so poorly and getting swept in Los Angeles, that they'd go on to Texas, a legitimate World Series contender, and sweep this 3-game series. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, will be dropping the episode a little bit later on. But, they put it all together. Pitching, hitting. This is the kind of team that I would enjoy watching every day. Timely hitting, getting clutch hits, and of course the pitching is always there for the Milwaukee Brewers. Going into Texas and eliminating that 3-game sweep against Los Angeles by coming back and taking 3 of Texas. Okay? So they go 3-3 on that part of the road trip, 6-3 on the 9-gamer. That's amazing. Coming back home on Tuesday, taking on Twins in the first of 3. But man, how about that? Going into Texas and playing, I think, the most complete series of the season for the Milwaukee Brewers. We'll talk to you a little bit later on Locked On Brewers.
The Rangers got swept by the Brewers in a catastrophe of a series and an absolute poop Sunday of a Sunday game. I'm Bryce Paddock, host of the Locked On Rangers podcast. This was incredibly frustrating for the Rangers. They got rocked by Max Scherzer, just could not have a good game. The offense couldn't do much of anything outside of Corey Seager, Nathaniel Lowe. Scherzer didn't even make it through 4 innings, had 4 walks, 4 strikeouts, and it just felt like nothing was going right for the Rangers. 3 errors by Ezekiel Duran. It's just offense, defense, pitching. Nothing went well for the Rangers in this 3-game series. They've been one of the hottest teams in baseball, but this one they got a home run by Corey Seager, and then a couple of errors from the Brewers helped them out to score a second run, which came in the 9th inning. The Rangers managed to get runners at the corners in the 9th inning, but could not do anything with it. Of course, it ends on a great defensive play by Christian Yelich, because that's just the kind of series this was. An absolute stinker for the Rangers. They will brush it off and hopefully not continue this into the next series.
That's a wrap for this edition of Locked On Game to Game MLB. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. Playoff push has begun as we head into the last little bit of regular season baseball. Make sure that you're subscribed to Locked On MLB and your favorite team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.